Nobody was prepared for what happened next, and it all unfolded live. No edits, no PR filter, no warning. 1 minute, Papoose was calmly addressing rumors, trying to keep his composure in front of thousands watching in real time. The next minute, his voice cracked, his tone shifted, and the internet realized something had gone very wrong. Because this wasn't just frustration. This wasn't just clapping back. This was a meltdown. Comments started flying faster than he could read them. Fans noticed his hands shaking, his eyes darting, his words tumbling over each other as if he'd said too much and suddenly realized it. Viewers clipped everything, every pause, every slip, every moment where it felt like the truth was right there. And then he said her name, Remy Ma. That alone would have broken the internet, but it didn't stop there. Because seconds later, another name surfaced, one nobody expected to hear connected to this situation at all. 50 Cent. The chat froze. People stopped typing and started recording. Twitter went from zero to nuclear in under a minute. Old beefs resurfaced. Old alliances were questioned. Old interviews were replayed with brand new meaning. And just like that, a rumor that had been whispered for years suddenly felt dangerously close to confirmation. What exactly was Papoose reacting to? Why did Remy's name trigger that response? And what secret, allegedly involving 50 Cent, was he trying not to say out loud? A so-called insider dropped one sentence that sent chills through the timeline. He wasn't mad at the comments. He was panicking about what was about to come out. And once that idea took hold, there was no stopping it. Because if even part of what viewers think they witnessed is real, then that livestream wasn't just a breakdown. It was a crack in a wall that's been holding back the truth for far too long. The live didn't start like a meltdown. That's what made it terrifying. At first, Papoose looked composed, even amused, scrolling through comments with the practiced calm of someone who survived years of online noise. He said he was there to clear a few things up. No rant. No theatrics, just talk. Viewers settled in expecting a standard clapback session, nothing more than a man defending his name. Then the tone shifted, not abruptly. Gradually, subtly, the kind of shift you only notice in hindsight. His jaw tightened. He stopped smiling. He began rereading certain comments out loud, slower this time, like he was buying time. The chat was moving fast, but one theme kept popping up over and over, questions about loyalty, money, and a name nobody expected to hear connected to him in that moment. That name was 50 Cent. At first, Papoose laughed it off. He said people love reaching. He said the internet turns nothing into something, but his eyes told a different story. Viewers began clipping in real time, posting slowed-down versions of his reactions, pointing out the micro pauses, the swallowed words, the way his hands started to fidget as if his body was reacting faster than his mouth. Then someone mentioned Remy Ma. That's when the live cracked open. Papoose froze for half a second, just long enough for the chat to notice. He leaned closer to the camera, voice rising, insisting people stop dragging his wife into internet fantasies. He said Remy had nothing to do with none of that. But he didn't say what that was. And the omission screamed louder than any accusation. Comments exploded. People demanded clarity. Others accused him of dodging. A few viewers pointed out that he'd just acknowledged something without explaining it. The live viewer count jumped sharply, notifications firing as clips began circulating on Twitter with captions like, "Why is he so nervous?" And "This feels bigger than trolls." Papoose tried to regain control. He talked about respect, about boundaries, about how the internet creates stories that don't exist. But then, in what many now call the turning point, he went off script. He mentioned industry politics. He mentioned long memories. And then he said something that made the room go silent. "There's stuff I could say, but I won't." That was it. The chat lost its mind. Because if there was nothing there, why even suggest restraint? Why frame silence as a choice instead of irrelevance? Viewers began speculating in real time, theorizing that Papoose wasn't reacting to trolls. He was reacting to pressure. Pressure from history, from alliances, from something he knew would spiral if spoken aloud. That's when the alleged secret narrative took shape. Within minutes, burner accounts claimed the live meltdown wasn't spontaneous at all. According to one now-deleted post, Papoose had been warned earlier that day that old conversations were resurfacing, conversations involving Remy and 50 Cent that were never meant for public consumption. No proof, no receipts. Just a claim that felt explosive enough to spread. Fans started digging. Old interviews of 50 Cent were replayed, especially moments where he spoke cryptically about loyalty and betrayal in the industry. Lyrics were dissected. Timelines were cross-referenced. People noticed overlaps they'd never paid attention to before. Events where all three names existed in the same orbit, moments once written off as coincidence now reframed as foreshadowing. Back on the live, Papoose was unraveling. His voice rose, he spoke faster. He accused people of trying to bait him. He said the internet doesn't understand how deep things go. He said, "Y'all think this is entertainment. This is real life." And then, visibly frustrated, he said something that made even his defenders pause. "Some of y'all don't know who really held it down when it mattered." He never said who, he never said when, but he said enough. The chat filled with one word over and over: receipts. Papoose shook his head, insisting he wasn't about to do that on live. He said there were conversations that would never be public, that some people survive in the industry because others choose silence. That line, "choose silence," was clipped and reposted thousands of times within the hour. Meanwhile, Remy remained completely silent online. No tweet, no story. No like, that absence only intensified speculation. Fans debated whether her silence meant she was protecting something or protecting someone. Others argued she was smart to stay out of a moment spiraling out of control. Either way, her name trended alongside Papoose's by the end of the night. Then came the final moment of the live. Someone in the comments directly accused Papoose of being scared of 50 Cent. The air shifted. Papoose laughed, but it didn't sound amused. It sounded defensive. He leaned back, exhaled sharply, and said, "Y'all don't know what y'all talking about." But then he added, almost under his breath, "And that's a good thing." That sentence changed everything. Because it suggested knowledge, distance, a boundary drawn not out of indifference, but caution. Viewers latched onto it instantly, treating it like confirmation that there was more beneath the surface, something powerful enough to make a seasoned rapper unravel on camera. The live ended abruptly. No goodbye, no wrap-up, just gone. Within minutes, the internet filled the silence for him. Clips multiplied, hashtags trended. Papoose meltdown sat next to Remy and 50 like a puzzle begging to be solved. Some called it paranoia, others called it exposure. A few insisted it was nothing more than stress amplified by trolls, but one thing was undeniable: that livestream didn't feel accidental. It felt like someone reacting to a threat they couldn't name. And as the night wore on, one rumor refused to die: that Papoose wasn't melting down because of what was being said in the chat. He was melting down because of what he knew was about to come out next. By morning, the meltdown had a life of its own. What viewers thought they'd witnessed live was now being replayed, reframed, and rewritten in 1,000 different ways. Slow-motion edits of Papoose's face circulated with captions like, "Watch his eyes when the name drops." Audio-enhanced clips isolated every pause, every breath, every unfinished sentence. This wasn't reaction anymore, it was reconstruction. And reconstruction always looks for motive. The dominant theory hardened fast. Papoose hadn't gone live to address rumors, he'd gone live because something behind the scenes was already moving. According to multiple burner accounts that popped up overnight, the livestream was preventative, a pressure release, a way to get ahead of something he believed was about to surface whether he liked it or not. None of the accounts provided proof. They didn't need to, they offered timing. Screenshots of calendar posts, old interviews resurfacing in clusters, a sudden spike in mentions of 50 Cent paired with throwback clips where he joked, half-joked, about loyalty, leverage, and knowing where the bodies are buried in the industry. What once felt like bravado was suddenly treated like foreshadowing. The internet loves a pattern. By midday, a narrative formed that the alleged secret wasn't about money or beef, it was about alignment. About who stood with whom when doors were opening and closing. Commentators speculated that Remy's career resurgence, Papoose's positioning, and 50's influence intersected in ways fans never fully saw, because it was easier to believe in clean lines than messy overlaps. That's when Remy Ma's silence became the loudest sound in the room. Fans watched her socials obsessively. No likes, no reposts, no cryptic quotes. Her absence was read as strategy by some, stress by others. A few insisted it was protection of her brand, her marriage, or something deeper. Every hour without a response added another layer to the speculation. Then came the alleged industry whisper. A gossip page claimed to have spoken to someone 1 degree removed from the situation. According to that source, the tension wasn't new, it had been dormant. Old understandings that never needed to be spoken because everyone knew the boundaries. The source alleged that something shifted recently, reopening conversations that were supposed to stay closed. Again, no names, no dates, maximum intrigue. Creators began asking why Papoose reacted the way he did to that name and not others, why he emphasized silence as a choice. why he framed speaking as dangerous. If there's nothing there, one creator argued, you don't warn people off. Others pushed back hard, saying the internet was projecting paranoia onto a tired man dealing with trolls. They argued that reading fear into frustration is how narratives spiral, but even they admitted the live didn't feel ordinary. It felt loaded. Then the second flashpoint hit. A resurfaced clip from years ago showed Papoose praising 50 Cent's business acumen while carefully avoiding personal alignment. Commentators paused the clip, pointing out the language, respectful but distant. That's not fandom, one said. That's caution. Another creator stitched the clip next to the livestream meltdown and asked the question that set everything off again. What changed? The answer, according to speculation, was leverage. A theory spread that the alleged secret wasn't explosive because it was scandalous, but because it was compromising. Not criminal, not immoral, just the kind of truth that complicates public narratives people depend on. The kind of truth that turns allies into liabilities once exposed. That theory gained traction when an entertainment lawyer went live to explain why people avoid speaking on powerful figures publicly. Not because they're afraid, but because relationships in the industry are layered. Speaking can close doors permanently. Silence keeps options alive. That explanation didn't calm the crowd. It emboldened it, because now Papoose's restraint was being framed as evidence of pressure rather than maturity. The more reasonable the explanation became, the more conspiratorial the internet got. The story fed itself. Then came the clip that pushed it over the edge. Someone found an old moment where 50 Cent laughed during an interview and said, "People talk when they think it's safe." The clip had nothing to do with Papoose or Remy at the time, but paired with the meltdown, it felt prophetic enough to fuel another wave of posts. The phrase "shocking secret" started trending, not because anyone knew what it was, but because everyone was convinced it existed. Meanwhile, Papoose stayed offline. That absence mattered. Fans expected a follow-up, a clarification, anything. Instead, there was nothing. And in online culture, silence after spectacle doesn't read as calm, it reads as containment. By nightfall, the narrative fractured into three camps. One believed Papoose had nearly exposed something he was warned not to touch. Another believed he was spiraling under the weight of false narratives. The third believed the truth sat somewhere in between, real, but not explosive enough to justify the frenzy. Then a final rumor began circulating quietly. According to whispers, the meltdown triggered private conversations behind the scenes, calls made, boundaries reinforced, reminders issued. Not threats, not confrontations. Just the kind of industry housekeeping that happens when attention gets too close to sensitive history. If that's true, then the livestream didn't expose the secret. It alerted people to protect it, and that possibility made the stakes feel higher than ever. Because if powerful figures really were moving quietly in response to a few minutes of unfiltered emotion, then the live wasn't a breakdown. It was a warning shot. And whatever Papoose was reacting to, real or imagined, wasn't over yet. The question wasn't whether something would come out. It was whether anyone would dare say it out loud. The third wave didn't bring a confession, a receipt, or the shocking reveal everyone was bracing for. It brought something far more uncomfortable. Silence and the consequences of it. After nearly 24 hours of nonstop speculation, clipped live streams, slowed down footage, and theories stacked on theories, the internet hit a strange pause. Not because answers arrived, but because nothing else did. No follow-up live, no clarification post, no "let me clear this up" statement from Papoose, no response from Remy Ma, and absolutely nothing from 50 Cent. That absence forced the conversation to turn inward. Media analysts and culture commentators began pointing out something viewers hadn't wanted to hear in the heat of the moment. No actual secret had leaked. No verifiable information had surfaced. What the internet was reacting to wasn't a revelation, it was emotion. A man visibly uncomfortable on camera. A reaction that felt loaded. A silence that people rushed to fill with meaning. And that's when the story changed. Instead of asking what is the secret, people started asking, why are we so sure there is one? A respected hip-hop journalist posted a thread explaining how live streams often become psychological Rorschach tests. Viewers project context, history, and fear onto incomplete moments, especially when powerful names are involved. According to them, Papoose's meltdown didn't prove hidden alliances or buried truths. It proved how quickly audiences weaponize discomfort. That thread went viral for a different reason than the clips. It slowed people down. Others followed, pointing out that the industry relationships being speculated about span decades, collaborations, conflicts, reconciliations, and mutual coexistence. The idea that every tense moment signals a scandal ignores how complex and nonlinear real industry dynamics actually are. One commentator put it bluntly, "Not every pause is a cover-up. Sometimes it's just someone realizing they shouldn't argue with strangers for free." That reframing mattered, because once the adrenaline faded, cracks appeared in the narrative. The shocking secret everyone was chasing had no shape, no timeline, no victim, no outcome. It existed only as implication. And implication without evidence can't survive long once people stop feeding it. Papoose's continued silence began to look less like fear and more like restraint. Industry veterans weighed in, explaining that experienced artists often choose not to engage once a narrative spirals past control. Responding can validate speculation. Silence, while uncomfortable, starves it. Several pointed out that Papoose has historically avoided public beefs and online theatrics, making the live an outlier, not a pattern. As for Remy, commentators cautioned against dragging her into a moment she never addressed. They reminded audiences that silence from women in these situations is often misread as complicity when it's actually self-preservation. Without her voice in the conversation, assumptions about her role became increasingly indefensible. Then came the most telling shift of all. The algorithms moved on. Trending topics changed. Reaction videos slowed. Creators who had milked the moment pivoted to new drama. The same pages that promised "more coming soon" quietly deleted posts or reframed their takes as opinions instead of implications. No leak followed the meltdown. No revelations surfaced. No confirmation ever arrived. What remained was a case study in how quickly online culture can manufacture a narrative from tone alone. How a raised voice, a half sentence, or a refusal to elaborate can become proof when audiences are primed for scandal. Even critics of Papoose began acknowledging that the reaction had outpaced reality. Some admitted they'd been caught up in the energy of the moment. Others noted how easily speculation becomes conviction when powerful figures are involved, especially figures with complicated histories that invite projection. The final word didn't come from any of the three names attached to the story. It came from fatigue. By the end of the cycle, people weren't asking what the secret was anymore. They were asking whether there ever needed to be one. Whether the meltdown said more about the pressures of constant visibility than about hidden truths. Whether the internet's hunger for exposure had turned an emotional moment into a fictional thriller. And that realization landed quietly, but heavily, because what the live ultimately exposed wasn't a shocking secret. It exposed the machinery. The way speculation accelerates, the way silence gets criminalized, the way emotion becomes evidence. In the absence of facts, the loudest story wins until it doesn't. Papoose never returned to address it, Remy never responded, 50 Cent never acknowledged it, and the lack of fallout became the loudest conclusion of all. No deals collapsed, no alliances broke publicly, no truth bomb detonated. The wall everyone thought had cracked turned out to be intact. What did break was the illusion that every viral moment is a revelation. Sometimes it's just a reminder. Not every live stream is a leak. Not every reaction is a confession, and not every silence hides a secret. Sometimes the internet creates the story, and then convinces itself it uncovered something real. And once that becomes clear, the noise fades on its own. If you're still here, understand this. This is the part most people miss. The internet loves the explosion, but it rarely stays for the aftermath, the silence, the unanswered questions that matter more than any viral clip. What you just watched wasn't just a meltdown. It was a real-time lesson in how fast narratives are built, amplified, and then quietly abandoned once the truth refuses to cooperate. Hitting like on this video isn't about picking sides, it's about slowing the machine down. It tells the algorithm that context matters more than chaos, that not every raised voice equals guilt, and not every silence hides a secret. The comment section is where this story actually gets finished. Did you think something real was about to drop? Did you change your mind by the end? Say it. That conversation is the difference between speculation and awareness. And if you're not subscribed, you're choosing to only see the loud part of the story. Subscribers are here for what happens after the clips stop trending, when people either stand on what they implied or quietly move on. That's where the real patterns show up. Turn on notifications. Share this with someone who understands how easily the internet confuses emotion with evidence. because the next, shocking secret will come fast, and only the people paying attention will recognize whether it's real or just another moment dressed up as truth.